perform better than the students from the wealthiest neighborhoods in many other parts of the world. Poverty need not be destiny. That's really one important message from PISA. What you can also see that often, we allocate more teachers to disadvantaged schools. Now, in rural areas, often the class sizes are smaller and so on. So most education systems in the OECD area here actually put more resources into disadvantaged schools. But that's just the surface. If you look at the quality of teachers, you can see it goes the other way around. You can see very clearly that in most countries, even though there are more teachers in disadvantaged schools, it's not the best teacher. One of the challenges in education is to attract the most talented teachers to the most challenging classrooms and to get the best education leaders into the most disadvantaged schools. If you look to the most advanced education system in the world, that's where they have made a difference. If you come from a wealthy family, you will always have open doors in your life, even if you don't succeed so well in school. If you come from a poor family, you have one single chance in your life, and that is to find a great teacher and to be in a good school. If you miss that boat, you will have very few opportunities to catch up. That is actually something where our education systems can do better in the future. But once again, poverty need not be destiny. I think that's the first important lesson. The second is, some countries believe, well, if we accommodate a lot of, international migrants, they will drag down the performance of our results. It's not true. Actually, we see that the country where immigrants go to has a much greater influence on their success than the country where they come from. A third myth is, that money buys us everything. If you look at this chart, actually, you can see on the vertical axis, the performance of countries on PISA, and on the horizontal axis, the amount of money they spent up to the age of 15 years. And you can see on the left side, money matters a lot. So if Uzbekistan invests more resources into education, you will see better results. But it will only go up to a point. You can see on the right side, there comes a point when it is much more important how you invest your resources than just how much you spend. If you have to make a choice between a better teacher and a smaller class, invest in the better teacher. The class size is much less important than the quality of teachers. And that's another important lesson. Money is not everything in education. It's a starting point. But you will end up on a path where actually other things become more important. You can say the same about time. Here you can see the amount of learning time that students spend in different countries. In blue, the time in school, and in yellow, the time they spend on tutoring and homework and things like this. And you can see the United Arab Emirates leads the world. Students spend close to 60 hours learning per week. You compare that with Finland, is only 37 hours. Huge differences in the volume of learning time. But when you look at productivity, PISA shows that in Finland or Germany or Switzerland or Sweden or Estonia, students learn a lot in very little time. Whereas in the United Arab Emirates, they spend a lot of time and learn very little. So it's not just money, it's not just time, it's how we use that time. The quality of the instructional environment that matters in terms of learning outcomes. It's not quantity, it's quality. It's another really, really important lesson from the PISA. Here I come, to the question of how do we spend our resources? And I want to show you, one comparison. On the vertical axis, you look at the number of teachers in the system for every 100 students, the student-teacher ratio. On the horizontal axis, you look at the size of classes and compare the two biggest systems that we have in PISA, the United States and China. They have almost the same number of teachers in the system per every 100 students. But you can see in China, the class sizes are very big. In the United States, the classes are quite small. On the surface, you might say, oh, you know, the United States has done a better job. They have focused on reducing the class size. But that is only the look at the surface. China keeps its classes large because it wants to give its teachers time for other things than teaching. Chinese teachers do a lot of research. They work a lot with other teachers to work on innovative solutions, technology these days, but other things as well. They invest a lot in their professional careers. They have time for other things than teaching. The larger class enables the system to make other types of investment that are very, very important for the future of education. You could see a very successful strategy. In a country like the United States, the focus has been very much on reducing the class size, but the price for this is that, you know, the country cannot pay its teachers really well. The country cannot give its teachers time for other things than teaching. They're very busy teaching 1 hour after the other. Very few countries have more teaching hours per teacher than the United States. So it's about choices. You can spend your money only once, particularly when you have very little money. It matters a lot how you invest the resources. And our data show where countries invested in the quality of teachers, they succeed much more than when they invested in the quantity of teachers on the size of the class. It's another lesson from international comparisons. Now you will tell me, well, you know, maybe the small class size is not so important for improving learning outcomes, but it is still important for making teachers happy. Well, actually, we have looked into this. We've looked at the job satisfaction of teachers and the size of classes. And you can see there is not really any relationship among the two. The biggest predictor for the job satisfaction of teachers is the degree of professionalization. Where teachers have attractive careers, where you work on, you know, instructional development, where they observe each other's classrooms, where they join other teachers in professional development, you can see they're happy with their jobs. Where teachers are just, you know, teaching one lesson after the other, they often are not happy. No. It's not the size of the class, it's the quality of the work or environment that makes teachers happy. And again, sometimes that contradicts our perception. Sometimes we believe, oh yeah, we make the class smaller, we will improve outcomes. But through international comparisons, we can see it's not so simple, it's not so obvious. No. So another one, you know, there is this idea that, you know, students in East Asia are just doing well because, you know, there is a culture behind it. Well, you know, there's some truth in that. But the other part is that the culture in education is the one that we create. Do we help young people believe that effort will help them succeed? Or do we make them believe that, you know, success is all about the intelligence they were born with? One thing that the countries in East Asia, Japan, Korea, China, Singapore are particularly good is to give students the challenge. If you try hard, you know, your teachers will help you and you could be successful. In the Western world, often we believe, well, you know, success is not something that depends on you, that depends on the intelligence that you were born with. And those belief systems have a big impact on the kind of effort that students spend on education. So that's really, I think, some of the ideas and myths that we need to look at now. But in the second part, I want to look at more closely, what has PISA shown us about what makes education systems succeed? What can Uzbekistan learn when it gets the results? You know, if you get the results from PISA, that's not the end of the journey. That is the beginning of the journey where you can start to study, you know, how can we use the lessons from other countries? The first thing is really about making education a priority. And I'm really, you know, happy to see how Uzbekistan has made that decision to put its people first, to put the human capital, the skills of its people first. And that is something that unites you with most of the education systems are successful today.